Hey everyone, this is Ben from Valley's End Apiary. It's 8 o'clock on Friday night. I'm filling up our 40-gallon cast iron kettle. We have 5 3 to 5 gallon buckets that were filled up with meat and bones. These are all scraps from our butcher and deer that we harvested and butchered ourselves. Usually we use around 4 buckets worth, but we had a very fruitful harvest this year. Tomorrow is Saturday, which will be our annual Scrapple Day. We have a bunch of friends coming tomorrow morning to give us a hand making venison scrapple. Once we have it filled up, we're going to light the burner, bring it to a boil. That usually takes around 2 to 3 hours at the highest setting. The burner's a 200,000 BTU propane banjo burner. Once it comes up to a boil, I'll just have it cracked enough to have a tiny blue flame, which will keep the temps around 200 degrees for the night. 200 degrees is a good temperature to ensure all the bacteria is killed and to cook everything thoroughly, similar to a crock pot. I'll show you later tonight what the flame settings look like. I want to avoid a boil to keep it from overflowing and putting out my flames because it'll fill the barn up with propane if I'm not out there to see it. By morning, after stewing all night, the meat will be falling off of the bones, which makes it much easier for separating. In the morning, we get the group together and start ladling out all of the bones and meat to separate them. The meat and marrow go into the grinder, and the bones go into the trash. We also dispose of any nervous system tissue in this process. All the broth is ladled into buckets as we go until the kettle is empty. We do this to eliminate any bone chips, because not much is worse than biting into delicious scrapple and chomping down on a hunk of bone. After the broth, meat, and bones are out of the kettle, and the kettle is wiped down to remove all the bone chips, we pour the broth back in and add the ground meat and spices into it and bring it to a boil and reduce it to a simmer. After the mixture comes to a boil, the fun part begins. We stir the mixture and mix in the various flour and cornmeal until we can't stir it anymore because it becomes very thick. The mixture should continue steaming through the process. Keep your nose open for any burning smell, as this means your temp is too high. And if you need a good source for free, food-safe buckets, check your local bakery for icing buckets. It's important to use a cast iron kettle because it diffuses the heat. Scrapple will burn quickly to the sides of the kettle if the temperatures get too high. On the other hand, copper or steel will conduct the heat too directly and burn it at the point where your burner is. It does get pretty thick. As you can see here, sometimes it helps to have 2 people or even 3 people helping to stir. Once you're satisfied with the consistency, keep the mixture moving and keep it from burning to the bottom with a scrapple hoe while it cooks. You can tell it's cooked because it'll start to smell like cooked scrapple. That's when you turn off the flame. We add lard along the edges to keep the scrapple from sticking. After we're satisfied that it's cooked, we use a tablespoonful every 6 to 8 inches. Now we ladle it into bread pans to cool and thicken up. It'll get to a jello-like consistency. Scrape any residue off the sides as you go so it doesn't cook fast to the cast iron, and also keep scraping it with the scrapple hoe. Now for the really fun part of getting it all cleaned up, use lots of Dawn dish detergent and keep the water hot enough that you can barely stand to have your hands in it so it softens up all the tallow, because deer tallow is sticky stuff. After several hours of cooling, turn the pans upside down, divide it into blocks, and bag it for freezing. Hope you enjoy it as much as we do.